um, uh, and Dr. Wright Stead, and we'll be facilitating this session virtually tonight. I know that you may have gotten a notification on your screen saying that we are recording. Just wanted to let everybody know at the beginning of this call, just like all of our other previous sessions were recorded, this virtual session will also be recorded and posted to our YouTube and also to our website, so that if anyone is unable to attend any session, they can click on the link and they can view sessions in their entirety. All right. And so is in every session, we always start with our LRSD mission. And our main mission is that all children deserve extraordinary, equitable learning experiences and outcomes. We are responsible for making this happen. So we wanted to keep that at the forefront of our conversation tonight. And also as we frame our situation with the Little Rock School District. And so in order to fulfill our mission, LRSD has a number of critical decisions to make to ensure our district is both learner-centered, educationally competitive, and fiscally sound. I'll go over a quick overview of our agenda for tonight's session. It's the same as all of our other sessions. We always start off with our welcome, purpose, and context for framing our session tonight. We're going to go over the issues and our proposal process. Then we'll talk about our directions for proposal review and feedback process. Then we'll have some time for everyone to break out into separate groups. We've categorized 3 separate groups that I'll talk about here in the presentation in a moment. Then we'll have an opportunity for everyone to report out on their recommendations. And then we'll have a whole group voting. And so we're virtual. We're going to ask everyone to drop their email addresses into the chat box so that we can send out the polling for our voting session. We are going to have open discussion, however, after the group report outs, so that we can hear from everyone in the chat room. And then we'll get into our closing. So this is the framing. Our fiscal year 25, if all of our revenue stays the same and enrollment doesn't take a significant decrease, we're projecting a need to cut a minimum of $7 to $9 million from our general operating expenses, along with an additional $6.5 million for new debt service payments. And I'll explain why that is here in a couple of moments in the next slides. And to be safe, we're projecting the need to cut a total of $15 to $16 million. 80 to 90% is projected to come from personnel cuts. 10 to 20% is projected to come from program cuts. And just to reiterate Dr. Wright's words, that all options in all areas of operations will be considered. And so what are some of the contributing factors to these projections? Number one on the list is our declining enrollment. You can see there in parentheses over 500 students in fiscal year 23, over 180 students in fiscal year 24. We also have additional school support staff in our priority schools. ALE has been expanded, our new network support structure, and as well as higher interest rates for those debt services that we mentioned in the previous slide. In addition to that, Little Rock School District currently operates 2 small high schools, and we're also scheduled to build a brand new high school to open in the fall of 2026. The current enrollment does not support the number of high schools presently operating in LRSD. We have our enrollment numbers here on the screen for you, as well as highlight arrows going to Hall and West. This is just more information about the two small high schools that were mentioned, Hall and Little Rock West, in the amount of expenditures that are excluding building maintenance and child nutrition for each campus. So 4.2 million for Little Rock West and 5.2 million for Hall. And so in order to help us with these dilemmas, we designed an optimizing LRSD proposal process, and we invited all stakeholders, parents, students, staff, community members, groups, organizations, everyone to submit proposals for consideration to address some of our enrollment trends and school building utilization challenges in the district. The why is there. We believe that there may be many options and ideas that exist beyond those in district leadership, and wanting to be grassroots and equitable with having a shared platform for everyone to come up with solutions for some of the dilemmas that our school district is facing. So this is some of the information that was provided, and it's still available on our website right now. The data that was provided for all of the RFPs were our 10-year enrollment trends, building capacities, our demographer report from earlier this calendar year, recent renovation history of buildings with significant maintenance needs, and current facility needs, as well as a financial context. And once again, just to reiterate, all of that information is still readily available on our website. We received 91 proposals through this process. That deadline closed on Friday, November the 3rd. However, we are in our open discussion sessions during all of the optimization community sessions. We've had opportunities for individuals to speak to new ideas. And so we want to extend that again tonight when we get to our open discussion portion of this session. And so today's sole focus is around our building utilization ideas. Little Rock School District Administration will use the feedback from community sessions to determine which proposals or parts of proposals will be recommended to the board for discussion and action during the December work session and board meeting. And that is kind of our main focus on making sure that the proposals that were deemed feasible have an opportunity to be fleshed out during these community sessions. And as well, we have time to follow up with those who propose these RFPs, and also get important information to our board so they can make a decision. For the proposals that were not deemed immediately implementable or feasible, those will be included as a part of a review during our strategic planning process. And so we've gone through all of the proposals, but narrowed it down so that we have a more manageable utilization of time during these community sessions. And so we've broken those proposals down and categorized them, as mentioned earlier, into 3 separate groups. Those groups are pre-K to high school, repurposing the use of buildings in Little Rock School District, as well as high schools. And so we'll see links in our chat box that will lead you to all of the proposals in each of those groups. And you'll have an opportunity here in a moment when we get into our breakout sessions to self-select and choose a group that you would like to be in. Once you self-select that group that you would like to be in, we'll have 20 minutes to do the following. Assign roles. The first role will be a note taker to write down the recommendations. Of course, we're virtual, so it won't be on chart paper. It will be in the chat box. And you'll also designate a reporter that will come back once our 20-minute time period has concluded to talk about and give an overview of what your group discussed. And then finally, a timekeeper will need to keep time. I will say this, since we're in a virtual session, we do have LRSD staff that will be joining in the break rooms to help co-facilitate and answer questions as they arrive in the breakout rooms, as well as help with timekeeping. And so we're going to move right into that so that we can have as much time as possible to have those group discussions. Once you have those group discussions, we'll have group reporting that's going to be at 5 minutes each. We'll be using the email addresses that you provided in the chat box. And if you have just joined us, if you would please drop your email address in the chat box so that we can share out the voting process and make sure that that is reported and recorded on our website for this community session. So in a moment, we're going to open up our subgroups, and you will be able to choose, self-select your breakout room. And you'll see on the bottom of your screen, if you hit the More tab, you have an option for breakout rooms, and you can select which breakout room you would like to be in based off of your desired interest. If you click on the More button on the bottom of your screen, there should be options for breakout rooms that pops up, and you'll be able to self-select which breakout room you would like to go into.
Ms. Harper, did you want to join a room? I can't hear you. Your mic's turned off.
So I guess I'm gonna have to go to another tab. Okay, I see more. All right, I see meeting settings and background effects. I see the little square popping up for breakout rooms, but it's
Okay, well, if you click on that, you should be able to see the room you want to join. Do you see it?
Good evening and welcome to our Optimizing LRSD session this evening. I wanted to let you guys know that we are currently in our breakout rooms. If you would like to join a breakout room, we can look at the bottom of your screen and click on the More tab, select breakout rooms, and everyone is self-selecting the breakout room to join.
Dickerson. She can hear me. Ms. Dickerson, we didn't talk about who wanted to report. Do you want me to report?
sure.
Okay, and you just jump in too, okay?
Absolutely.
All right, and I think we had a couple of new participants join us in the main room tonight. And so they're going to be listening to the recommendations and conversation from participants who were able to be in those breakout rooms for longer time periods. If And so we'll start with our pre-K to 12 group, if you guys can report out for us.
Was that us?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, we had a good discussion. We had 3 proposals. One of them was concerning Western Hills. The proposal was to close Western Hills, but we didn't like that idea. Instead, we thought it would be essential for that neighborhood and for those kids who are there, those families, that we keep that school open, continue with the traditional elementary school there, and then add to that pre-K center that would be 0 to 4, in which people who live in the corridor down there would have access to really quality pre-K, and on top of that, build capacity for growing that elementary school, which is such an important school. We also talked a little bit about Hall and West, Hall and West of Innovation, now that they've been unified. We still need a way to make sure we fill up the Hall building, because I don't think any of us probably want to lose that to a charter school. So we thought possibly adding adult ed and the ALE, the alternative school there. There's a lot of room in that building. It holds 1,600 kids, and the new campus probably will be 500. So we thought that might be a neat idea. We had a proposal that called for pre-K in more of our elementary schools, and we thought that was a good idea. Many of our families lack transportation to get to the pre-K centers, and it might be nice to have small 4-year-old pre-K, maybe 3 and 4-year-old pre-K, like we have at Chico in some of the other schools. And then finally, we talked just briefly about Parkview and West. I know some of you had a proposal that we consolidate those schools, and we didn't want to jump into that too deeply, but now that the cost for building the new West building is out, and it's going to be $153.6 million, which is well above the $85 million advertised, we would love to see the district put a halt to the West building, and let's have greater conversation about what we can do to enhance the schools we have and to uplift the communities that have been faithful to our district through the years. And if anybody else wants to add something, Ms. Dickerson or anybody, that's all I had.
I think you covered all the points perfectly. Thank you so much.
All right. And we'll move to our repurposing buildings group to report out.
So our group, there were 3 proposals. We, however, kind of took a little bit of a different route, and we talked a lot about how we didn't like the idea of closing schools, of abandoning schools, and rather want to take a harder look at more income generating plans and ways to expand and generate resources so that we can best utilize what we already have. There's a lot of disappointment in the possibility of shutting Hall down. So that was something that was talked about wanting to try to avoid. And there's an idea that we should be looking towards plans to increase enrollment and retention so that we don't have to be faced with this situation of closing schools. And if there's anyone in that group that wanted to add anything, please do.
Right. And let's see, hand raised.
Amy.
I just want to add that we also mentioned that there is an immediately implementable option, which is to work on the school culture to make the schools welcoming and loving for the students we have, instead of treating students and families like adversaries. And that would not take a lot of money, but it would take some courage to challenge the culture and the history of bullying that exists in the district.
Thank you for that. Dr. Whitfield, to your hand.
Yes, I just wanted to make sure that people saw what I placed in the chat. that we currently know that Southwest High School as well as Central High School are over really at or above capacity. And a plan for Hall High School that makes sense is to reassign students back to Hall that were assigned away from it, that filled up Southwest High School. And I say don't touch Parkview, leave it alone. Reinvest our tax dollars that we've been placing into these buildings, our property taxes for all these years, whatever structural issues they have, fix them.
Thank you for that. I also want to highlight, I see Ms. Harshaw also has a comment in the comment section. And just everybody is understand, the meeting chat is also going to be recorded as well. And so we'll be able to share that information. Did we have a reporter from our final group?
Yes. So this was a secondary group, and there were pieces of the proposals that, people kind of liked, but most everybody was against the idea of combining or getting rid of Parkview. Some things that were said that, it's Parkview is a staple of the community. It's academically sound. There were promises to make improvements to that building that have not been made. And so, we're letting it crumble, essentially, were the concerns that people that graduated more than a few years ago still see the same facilities, no changes, no updates, things like that. And even I think it was noted that either the gym or the auditorium isn't even handicap accessible. There was a discussion about the 4-day week. There were thoughts both for and against that. I specifically stated, if private schools aren't doing that, why should public schools have to? But then there were some great points made by others in the group about, that would allow for more teacher planning time that could reduce some of the stress that teachers are having day to day. And then we could utilize that 5th day to do some more wraparound services, to, provide special services that students might need. And you could have some kind of special things that are included. But then the concern was, would that actually be saving us money or not? And then there was a discussion about the possibility of a 9th grade academy and making Hall a 9th grade academy for the entire district, where you have students that they're coming together. There's a focus on that transition to high school so that they're getting extra attention for that, that it's building camaraderie throughout the district. There were some questions about what would that look like for sports and extracurricular activities. And so, how would we work around that? And, would there be connections to the schools that they would be going to in the next year? Could they play JV at those schools? What would that look like? And then there was, even maybe you could have teams within the school or something. And then there was finally discussion about, again, bragging on our schools and letting people know that, we have the best, we really do. And just kind of getting that out there more. And I think that, just to add my own thing there, that's going to be community conversations. That's going to be deeper than this, because when we look at the people that are sending their children to private schools or that are wanting schools in certain areas and things like that, there are underlying things that are going on there that, need to be addressed at all levels of the community, not just from LRSD. And I don't know if I missed anything, y'all, so please correct me if I did.
I think you got most of it, Ms. McClain. I did have a question. I think we ran out of time. I was trying to ask Mr. McAdoo a question in terms of, I know we were talking about the 9th grade academy and what that would look like. far as the district, Mr. McAdoo, were you asking, like, were you suggesting for all ninth graders in Little Rock School District to attend one school? Is that what it was? I was just trying to
Yes,
get
I
clarity on
was.
that.
Yes, I
Okay.
was. I think that would release the pressure off high schools, especially Southwest and Central. It would allow for kids to populate Hall. And I think you have teachers in enough subject areas that they could populate the staff and get, again, these great offerings that we have even at that place, and they will be preparing. And we discussed the maturity levels of different people. I've been around long enough to work both in a junior high system and a middle school system, and I always thought the 7th through 9th system worked better than the 9th through 10th system, 9th through 12th system. I mean, it was evident from a practitioner standpoint.
All right. So we're at the
I
portion.
was just,
Yeah,
oh,
go
I'm
ahead.
sorry.
Go ahead.
No,
You're saying-
I think that's a great point, because there was something too, if you think about that in terms of our building layout. If you think and you're saying ninth grade students in one building, again, I told you in our breakout, my concern would be extracurricular activities and where students will then get to go to do those things. Because if you're thinking about number wise, I'm just thinking on estimate, like Southwest. I think Ms. Whitfield alluded to it about Southwest and Central. You think about 500 and 600 ninth graders just in itself. So that's like 1,200 students. And then you thinking somebody like Parkview, our average freshman class is like 300. So when you're trying to do extracurricular things, and a lot of kids are going to be excluded from those things unless we can figure out a way to tie them back to a building. I don't think you can do that. There's no way that you can have 1,300 kids, really more 13 to 1,500 kids, and you're saying we're going to play sports, or we're going to be in a drama production, or about, like, you're going to have to tie them back to a school, because somebody's going to be excluded numbers wise. It's no way that you can only put so many people on the field. You can only put so many people on the stage. So I just think those are things that we need to consider in that. But I do agree. I think with the 7th, 8th, and 9th grade, again, going back to the things we talked about in our group about the maturity level, and it also plays a part in selection for these students when they're going to high schools, because we're one of the few one of the few districts that are on that model. So like North Little Rock, the county, those ninth graders, they're going and they're able to participate and do something that our students are not, because we don't have any other schools around us. Like, we can't play in the league with them because they have 8th and 9th grade games. Because like you said, Mr. McAdoo, they're on a junior high model. And so for a ninth grader coming into Little Rock Central, Little Rock Parkview, you're relegated. Like, our ninth grade teams literally have to go to Camden, go to Texarkana to just find enough games or whatever for them to play. And we don't even often field a lot of ninth grade teams in the city, because we're fighting for the same kids, and they'll leave Little Rock and go to other districts because they're on that, like you said, junior high model. So those are just things to think about.
And the last thing I would say is that the Little Rock School District presence has really been gutted out of West Central Little Rock. I mean, with Romine, with Henderson, with all the schools, Wilson, all of those schools kind of taken out of play for the neighborhood I live in. Yeah, as a resident, I really need Parkview to stay.
Yeah. We want to stay. We just want some upgrades for our children too, because as you said, those babies deserve it too. There's no way that building, with the success that it has had academically, athletically, from a cultural perspective, in terms of your arts and performing arts, for them to have to be in rundown facilities. It just makes no sense to me. And I think all communities, all those students deserve an opportunity to have state-of-the-art things. That's just a fact. All students do, but if we constantly building and spending millions of dollars on something new and we're not upgrading what we have, then what are we going to do? Like,
Can I say something on that, and also what Ms. Hershaw put in the comments? Something to keep in mind, if we move forward with this West building at $153 million, that's half the bond money. We've already spent a lot on Lacey and Baseline. We might not have the money to fix Parkview if we go forward with this school at this price. And that's something I think we need to put pressure on our board, and this administration really needs to think about. Let's pause that building and let's think about what we would actually want to do with our city, how we want to plan it out. We're moving way too fast, I think.
I don't understand why we want to move Parkview, and Parkview is thriving right now. Parkview is thriving. It's always thrived to me. And, like you said, with the upgrades, we need upgrades to the school. The school is doing good academically. The drama and the music, the band, the arts and the sports. Like, they're doing what they need to do. So why the funding isn't there? Yeah. They need better, the gym, the football field. They have a practice field.
That's half dirt.
The building is old.
Yeah.
The building is old. So I don't understand why we're trying to combine or build this school out west when you have a perfectly good school that's thriving already in West Little Rock, and the name is Parkview. And I think it should stay, and we shouldn't combine it.
A promise was made to the West High School community, but it was made at $85 million. And to jump from $85 million to $153 million seems to me outrageous, especially if we don't really have, after the LEARNS Act, we don't have a guarantee that 1,200 students will come to the new West School. We have 1,000 students at Parkview right now. We ought to take care of Parkview. I'm with you all on that.
And the parents hadn't filled it up with their children either, so.
Right. We still haven't fixed enrollment retention.
I'll just contribute that when I worked for Mr. Walker, I saw the building plan, the contracts for the new schools out west, and just the finishes involved were, the quality of the materials and stuff. There's just such a disparity that continues. And I know that it's been litigated extensively, but with what Jim is saying, with the building costing so much more than what was litigated, what was before the federal court, it makes me wonder, does it raise a lot of new questions about the disparities in the district being perpetuated?
Yeah, and I think, just I'm speaking from a Parkview perspective, the only reason that came about was because, as we were talking about in our breakout session, I was telling Ms. Harper, Ms. McAdoo, and Ms. McClain, we were just sitting there saying, what can we do for our students in our building? And if y'all going to spend millions of dollars out there, then, what is it for our students? If we're not going to move them and put those students in a better place, then what are we going to do for those kids who are there? Because a lot of people who attend Parkview are either alum, their parents went there, and we believe in Parkview. And so those students then get to come to Parkview based on those things. But if we're talking about, I think somebody just mentioned retention and trying to improve recruitment, when people come into our building, we're getting them out there, we're recruiting. I think we did an excellent job this year. But they're coming into the building and they're looking around because it looks literally like a dungeon on the inside. The lighting is very limited, especially on an overcast day. It is hard. It took for us to have a student who is visually impaired for us to get lighting in the building in certain wings, which is crazy to me. But those are facts. So I don't think that anybody is like, oh, we got to go. But we want something done for our kids. And that's pretty much why I'm here, because as a graduate, I believe in this school. And I know people before me, I have family members that graduated from there. And those students who trust and those parents who have continued to support Parkview, those students deserve upgrades as well.
And as long as it's just wait time, because I did see a couple of people come off mute, and so I just wanted to make sure that there's opportunity for everyone to speak during this open discussion period. Ms. McLean?
Are we gonna talk about the repurposing next, or the last group that was organizing or talking? Or are we talking about that now?
We're talking about it now. We thought
Okay.
that already
Okay.
reported out, but we can definitely, this is just
Okay.
open discussion, so
So,
topics are on the table.
yeah, so I want to re-emphasize one of the things that I said in our group, and it might have been said again. I'm sorry if I missed it. But the Little Rock School District has consistently not spent enough time and energy in trying to create and generate resources. And I think we've said this before, we've shared this with the current superintendent, and we've shared this with the previous superintendents for the past, since 2015, that we need an external audit of the Little Rock School District to find out where are the resources coming from and how are they being spent once they come into the district. It's not to be an indictment on anyone. It is to have an assessment of where we are and how we can better operate. It is an assessment on where we are and what we need to do in order to be more effective and efficient in ensuring that every student in every classroom at every school has excellence. And we're not doing that right now. And we should be looking at ways to generate resources and income, or to move current resources and funding that has already come from the federal government that perhaps are not being purposed for what they should have been purposed for. And so it is. So I heard somebody speaking about Parkview. I said I'm a Hall High alum, and so are some other people on here. It broke my heart to go to Hall High School and to see how dark and dim our hallways were when I moved back home. Part of why I became the PTA president there was because there was such apathy, because people felt like Hall was the forgotten high school. And nobody should ever feel like that. So when we talk about some of the challenges that we're experiencing in the state of Arkansas with public schools and public education, we know that there's an attack on public schools. And what the Little Rock School District looks like to me is that it's giving into these attacks and throwing in the towel not even prematurely at all. We should not be throwing in the towel. We should be having a wonderful comeback and showing how excellent and how important and how essential public schools are to the thread and to the heartbeat, not only of our city, but of our state. We should be trailblazers. The Little Rock Nine helped us to appreciate why it is important for us to have excellence in education in schools. And so I would hope that from all of these discussions, that instead of having a shrinkage mindset, instead of trying to talk about how we can shave off, let's talk about how we can be more responsible and accountable with what we already have. Let's talk about how we can not only recruit and retain students, but let's talk about how we can take care of the people that are already here so that they know that they are well loved and appreciated. And that not only includes our students, but I'm talking about our educators as well as our parents and our school administrators. We need to show more love. And when you give love, you get love.
Thank you for that, Ms. McLean. Is your hand still raised?
Yeah, I fully support everything Dr. Whitfield just said. And then I had a question, but I was wondering, and this may have been mentioned somewhere, but what is the enrollment at Pinnacle View Middle, and what would be the expected enrollment? Do we have an idea of that, of what out of the West High School? And I'm sorry if that's been mentioned before, but I just don't have that info in my brain right now.
Yeah, we can look at that information for you. Just give us a couple of moments. We can get you the latest enrollment data. I will say all the enrollment data is also, I'll just go ahead and plug that. The data that was put on the website is from the last 10 years, we have the enrollment trends from our schools. And I think you asked a question about was it the capacity of Little Rock West or the current enrollment for Little Rock West?
Yeah, it was the current enrollment for Pinnacle View Middle, because isn't that where you're expecting people to kind of move up into the West High School? And then what have y'all, like, what is the expectation? You know, you're building it for what, 1,200 students? And, you know, do we have an idea that that's actually going to happen?
It's
Or like
817 is the current at Pinnacle. And from what I've heard Dr. Wright say, we're bleeding students out of there to Joe T. Robinson into the private and charter schools when they've done in 8th grade. So that's very concerning. We need a survey if we're going to build a school out there to make sure there's any capacity out there. Very concerning. And that's down from a high of 903 a few years ago.
I have definitely heard students talking about the possibility of shifting to Robinson since West won't be there.
Another consideration is we don't want to be the biggest resource for charter schools. Giving up buildings, allowing them to come in and be our competition. I personally don't think that that's a good way to survive. It's not sustainable.
And a lot of parents have I think we lose a lot of them after elementary school, you know, and I know I've heard multiple people bring this up, but when it comes to the middle school transition, that's where we're losing a lot of people because a lot of families don't feel like they have the same amount of options that they would for, you know, elementaries and things like that. So a focus there might help us retain more of those students as then they start to make those decisions for high school. But if we've already lost them, they're not coming back. Well, a lot of people will come back. They'll go to charters and then they'll come back to Central because they want to have that on there. But that's a whole nother thing.
All right, see hand raised, Amy.
I would just add to what Ron and Veronica said, that the middle schools are where you really see the disparities in school culture and just the facilities. That we have some great elementary and early elementary campuses, and then the parents, the people who even are heavily invested in public schools describe struggles with the schools that are frankly unnecessary if there was a culture shift, and it wouldn't be a problem to attract and retain students. So I suggest that the common theme of all the feedback you're getting is a real fundamental rethinking of the approach to shift from a losing posture to a how do we grow posture. And there are several means, including better financial stewardship. There's a lot of stuff that we know about, maybe you don't know about, but an independent audit would certainly help to find where we could be operating better, more financially prudent, rethinking schools, meeting markets that are where we are. Why are we atrophying? Why are we losing students and then seeking to retain the students? And there's low-hanging fruit just in terms of lighting in facilities and theater equipment and things that we could be doing, like the idea of spending $150+ million for 1,200 students in West Little Rock, while the students at Parkview with visual disabilities don't have sufficient lighting and we can't get that fixed. I mean, if you guys don't see the disparity that's been reflected just in this meeting, then that's what's missing in this discussion. We need to see the investments in the facilities that we have and the community that we have, and how do we flip from a losing posture to a actual treating each other like we're valuable and we have a valuable asset. And how do we grow, retain and grow posture?
Thank you for that. I will want to make sure we highlight all of the chat that is all of the conversation that's happening in the meeting chat. And like I said earlier, before we're recording this session, so this session is going to be posted on YouTube as well as onto our website. And that's all I want to continue. I don't want to stop the conversation at all, especially since we're in a very robust, open conversation. So wanted to open it up for continued conversation or additional ideas, comments, concerns at this time.
I want to say something. You can tell from my accent that I did not grow up in Little Rock, but I do have kids in the district, and to me, it's almost as if we're always reacting. We're reacting, and we're not being creative or active. I mean, what is it that makes some of the other districts strive? What is it that they're doing right that we're not doing right in Little Rock? Why are people leaving? Is it the education that they're getting or not getting? What is it that's doing that? And why are we not being creative and doing things that would make people want to bring their kids to the district? Not trying to just keep the ones that are here, but make people want to come to the district. Oh, Little Rock School District, that's, you want to move to Little Rock, or you want to get your kids in the Little Rock School District because they're doing great things. They have a good curriculum. They're testing scores and everything is just great. Athletics, whatever it is, arts, whatever it is. Why are we not thinking in those lines? So what are the other schools, what are the other districts doing in Arkansas and outside of Arkansas that we're not doing? And what do they have that we don't have? And then, some of the proposals that I've read, it's almost as if we're sending people away. It's almost as if we wanted to go get those vouchers that they're giving out. It's just almost as if, okay, here we go. This is not for me anymore. We're just going to go ahead and, do something else. Because the people I've spoken to have been saying that. So those are my 2 cents. I don't know.
Thank you for that. I just wanted to just drop the message in the chat group because I know some people have to drop off. We're going to stay on and continue the conversation. I just wanted to give an opportunity for individuals that needed to drop off the call, that if you would please, before dropping off, drop your email address inside of the chat box. We are right now at 7:23, and so we don't want to go over too much longer, but I do see a couple of hands, and so I do want to point them out and give them an opportunity to speak before we get to our closing. Mr. Anderson and Ms. McLean.
Mine was just to speak with, I just listened to what Ms. Webb said. I hate to beat a dead horse, but I'm just thinking in terms of Central Arkansas, what's around us. And a big part of that, the word is facilities, So I think we're all kind of saying the same thing. What some of these schools have done, the county, they jumped out and all of their facilities they're upgraded or they're in the process of being upgraded. And so we're having to try to, as Ms. Webb was saying, we're reacting to what they're doing. So they've already started the groundbreaking on that. They're building new facilities. They're building this state-of-the-art things, and our buildings are still the same. And I think that for a while, it was no big deal because most of the schools were the same. But then you see a Pinnacle View Middle School get made. You see a Southwest High School get made. You see a Marion G. Lacey Middle School being constructed or K-8 school being constructed. And so now it shows you that, okay, my child can be in the Little Rock School District and get these better things. But the options are limited because all our buildings and facilities are so old. it's a lot of great things going on, as Mr. McAdoo, I think, alluded to, in our building. But the reality of it is, if I'm trying to recruit someone in, and you take a student that's 14 years old, that's getting ready to start high school, and you show them this big, pretty building, and then you bring them to these facilities, and they're looking up at the ceiling tiles, and it's water damage, or you can see where it's leaking from every time it's a rainstorm, they're gonna go with the other building. That's just a fact. And so that's where we lose some of these students. So I think it's not so much that what we're not doing in terms of in the building, but we have got to upgrade our facilities around the district to compete with these other schools, because that's what they're doing.
Thank you for that, Ms. McLean.
Yeah, so I absolutely agree with that, Mr. Anderson. And then I wanted to point out something that I haven't seen a whole lot of in some of these, conversations, but that I hear quite a bit, is that we are not seeing, and I don't know how much better it is. I think it's just a lot of, sadly, desperation that, we're not doing this well in any part of the state, private, whatever. But special education services are really lacking. Even when we just talk about, students that, have trouble getting assessments done, things like that, maybe if we could focus in on that a little bit and, really try to build that system up a little bit more to where, we are creating such a welcoming environment for any students that have different learning abilities or things like that, that could really, I think, make a big difference. And then I think we also, we have to talk about the elephant in the room. Y'all, we're fighting a divided city that is divided on racial lines. Why are they going to those schools? It's white flight. I mean, I don't want to say, but how do we as a district, how can we address that? You look at the population, the demographics, right? I mean, we have to be aware of that. And what are some ways that, I don't know the answers to that. I don't think any of us do. I think it's something that Little Rock as a community has been grappling with, for as long as it's existed, right? And it's everywhere that it is. But is there something different that we can do as a district that would address that, and I don't know, but if anybody has any ideas, maybe we could kind of talk about that a little bit.
Do I have the floor? I finally figured out how to turn my mic up. So now that can is opened, so I was going to suggest, one, again, back to the point about students who are leaving Pinnacle and going to Jyoti, I say focus on the students that we have, because what we don't do is we don't build up and we don't prioritize the students who are going to Cloverdale. All those kids are going to graduate from Little Rock School District if they're going to graduate at all. The students who are at all of our lower performing schools, we don't focus on those students. We get a lot of accolades, even though I'm new to Central, but the students who are always lauded are the students at the top. And it's not the students who are in the regular classes and they feel disenfranchised. That's part of the reason for all the fighting and everything else, is because that's where they get their recognition. I don't think that we have done a very good job at the middle school level, now that you bring that up. And I think that is something that we do need to focus on. We have Forest Heights and Pulaski Heights. So we have students who have been completely overlooked. For instance, my daughter went to Mann. And of course, she, I wanted her and not in the charter. I wanted her to get into one of the magnet schools because I knew that she was gifted. But we actually are making a difference in the kids. I knew she was brilliant, but she looks a lot like me. But she scored a 29 on the ACT coming out of 8th grade. However, she got nothing at Mann. There was nothing at Mann to stimulate her. There was nothing at Man to develop her. There was, she was overlooked in a lot of ways, and so were the kids who are like her. There was a lot of emphasis on the negativity and the students who were low performing students. There was nothing for the G&T programs. As you mentioned, special populations in SPED, we also aren't doing very much for the gifted kids who are Black and brown in Little Rock School District. And I think that we are losing in that group. We're not offering enough options for them. They're not recognized. And I think that that would help to bring students into the district. And even if not, it will retain the students that we have. I am of the mindset that I want who wants me. And if we have students who are in our schools and we're not going to address their needs and their wants and desires and try to develop them, why would they not go to a charter? But some of them, their parents may not even be aware of what they could do, but why neglect those groups of kids? Because the other kids have options and they have resources and their parents are going to make the best decisions for them. We have a whole group of kids who are being overlooked and who are underdeveloped. And I also believe that as we talk about resources, nobody likes to talk about the human resources aspect of it. Again, we have teachers who, that's why I do support the 4-day week, because we have teachers who could stand to be developed as well. And if we did have a 9th grade academy, just to think about all of the implications of that. For instance, I was at Southwest where we tried the academy model, and I've heard people say that it failed miserably, but with the new initiatives, when we start an initiative, we need to really work at before we started, we need to do our research and we need to implement it with fidelity. And what it was never implemented with fidelity, because I taught in Georgia and I taught with the Ford NGL model, and we never even changed the schedule. We wouldn't even we would not touch the master schedule in a way that you would need to do for academy schools. You have to have the advisory period. And we never got the advisory period. And so if you have these types of initiatives, which again, it is it's a really good model, especially for kids who aren't going to college, then you can't pick and choose parts of it. You have to implement it with fidelity. And when you're working with the special populations and we're talking achievement gap and that, we do have to listen to the students. We have to listen to the parents. We have to hear more from the teachers, and we have to give the administrators an opportunity to, sometimes you got to lose to win. And I think that if we strengthen the academic offerings for all of the kids, then we will see retention and we will see growth, because every parent wants the best for their child academically. And we do need facilities, but we need to work on, and I'm so sorry because I forgot your name. But we do need to work on loving on the students that we have and by servicing them. And by doing so, that's how I think that's how we can better brand our district and get the messaging back that we actually do care about all students and all of their futures are important to us. So that's what I got.
Absolutely. I love all of that.
Well, thank you.
All right, and I'm going to let that be our closing statement. I do want to plug our upcoming session this Friday at Western Hills. Noon, we'll be in person at Western Hills Elementary. We are also in the formulation stages of creating a Spanish speaking session as well for our Spanish speaking population. And we'll be pushing that information out through all of our media sites. And so I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight and for being a part of this conversation. Really appreciate the open dialogue and being able to share ideas and express any type of response to the proposals that were put into the chat. With that, thank you guys for coming out, and we hope that you will be able to join us. If not, tell your friends and family to come join us this Friday at Western Hills at noon.
Thank you.
Stay activated.